Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to read bass clef music. This tutorial is to help you read bass clef music. Instruments that use the bass clef include trombone, bass trombone and tuba, bassoon, contrabassoon, cello and double bass, and also timpani. If you want to learn to read treble, alto or tenor clef, please just visit www.seanhumphreys.co.uk/resources. Before we look at pitch, we'll have a quick look at rhythm and how the notes are written. Understanding the different ways in which the notes are written will help to make things easier to read when we start to look at pitch later on. Notes are written differently to show how long they last for. The length of a note is measured in beats. And the best way to think of a beat is to think of a heartbeat. Hopefully, you have a heartbeat that has a regular and consistent pulse. And we can think of a beat as an individual heartbeat. The pulse, that's a number of regularly spaced beats, one after the other. A one-beat note is called a crotchet, or a quarter note. And a one-beat note is drawn with a stem, that's the line that goes up from the blob or the note head, and the note head is the coloured in circle or oval shape at the bottom. A two-beat note is called a minim, or a half note. And the two-beat note also has a stem, that's the line going up, and on this one, a two-beat note, the note head is not coloured in. A four-beat note is called a semibreve, or a whole note. And a four-beat note is drawn with no stem, and the note head, again, is not coloured in. So it looks a little bit like a half note or a minim, but it doesn't have a stem on it. Now in music, we read these different notes, one after the other. So when you see a line of crotchets or quarter notes, as you can see in the top line here, one after the other, you would think in your head the rhythm T, 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 T. So if our pulse was like this, each of those crotchets would last for one beat. T, 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 T. On the next one down, you can see we've got two crotchets, those are quarter notes, and one minim, or a half note. For the half note, you can think the word cheese. So the rhythm would be something like this. Here's our pulse. It would go T, T, cheese. Have another listen to that. There's our pulse. T, T, cheese. For the next one, we have one minim, or a half note, and two crotchets, or that's two quarter notes. For this one, you could just swap the rhythm around, think the word cheese, and then T, T, like this. There's the pulse. It would go cheese, T, T. Have another listen, like this. There's our pulse. Cheese, T, T. For the next one down, we've got a crotchet, minim, followed by a crotchet, or if you prefer, quarter note, half note, with a quarter note at the end. For this, you could still think the same words, in this order, T, cheese, T. Here's our pulse. Goes something like this. T, cheese, T. Have another listen. T, cheese, T. And for the last one, this is two half notes, or two minims. You could think the word cheese twice. Sound a bit like this. Here's our pulse. Cheese, cheese. Have a go at clapping those through on your own, try different ones out, and see if you can come up with any other rhythms that might work. Now we've looked at rhythms, we can start looking at pitch. Now, these different note lengths are placed on a stave, and this will show how high or low they are. To see how high or low a note is, you look at the note head, and the stem, although it's important, doesn't tell you how high or low the note is. The higher the note is placed on the stave, the higher it will sound. The lower the note is placed on a stave, the lower it will sound. A stave is made up of 5 lines and 4 spaces. At the front of each stave is a clef. we are looking at the bass clef. The bass clef shows you where the notes go on the stave. The treble clef is used for the higher notes, the bass clef is used for the lower notes. Alto and tenor clefs are often used for some instruments that are pitched in between the treble and bass clef. When we draw notes on the stave, we either draw notes on the line or in a space. In the top example, you can see that this note is drawn on a line. This means that the line goes through the centre of the note head. In the bottom example, we say that this note is in a space. This means that the note head sits in between two lines of the stave, and a line doesn't go through the centre of the note head. Here is a picture of a stave. We can see the stave has 5 lines and 4 spaces. There are 5 notes on the lines, and the notes of a bass clef are G on the bottom line, B, the second line up, D on the third or middle line, F, the fourth line up, and A. To help you remember this, you can think green buses drive fast always for G, B, D, F and A. Do you remember that these letters go from the bottom line up to the top line? G, B, D, F, A. 4 notes go in the spaces: A, C, E and G. A sits in the bottom space, C is in the second space up, E is in the third space up, and G is in the fourth space up, or the top space. To help you remember this, you can think the little saying, all cows eat grass. Do you remember? Again, this goes from the bottom space upwards, A, C, E, G, from the bottom space to the top space. Here are the notes in the bass clef, starting from the lowest, rising right up to the highest. So G is on the bottom line, and A is on the top line. So this goes from line, then up to a space for the note A, then line for B, then a space for C, and that pattern, line space, line space, line space, works all the way up and down the stave. Notice that you have more than one G and more than one A. The A that is the most furthest to the right, written on the top line, sounds higher than the A that's the second note in the bottom space. The G that's in the top space sounds higher than the G that's written on the bottom line. So remember that the higher the note sounds, the higher it's written on the stave. The lower the note sounds, the lower it's written on the stave. The notes go in alphabetical order, and we use just 7 notes, A through to G, and this pattern is repeated over and over again. We often want to play notes that are higher or lower than the notes on the stave. Only using notes that fit onto the stave means we'd only be able to play 9 different notes. Notes can sit directly above or below the stave. Notes can sit on their own lines, above or below the stave. The little lines are called ledger lines. So if we look at the top example, we have the note B. This sits directly above the top line and is 1 note higher than the A. We then have C, which has its own little line, then D, which has a line and the note is placed above it, and then we have E, which has a little ledger line and another ledger line on which the note is placed. If we look at the second example, F is placed just below the bottom line, E has 1 ledger line, D has a ledger line above it, and C is on the second ledger line down. This might seem all fairly straightforward, but there is one slight problem that you may come up against. Although we only use the first 7 letters of the alphabet, from A through to G, reading music takes practice. Although not necessarily lots of time. The aim is to remember where each of the notes go and to become very familiar with how things look. Reading music is a bit like learning a language, and it takes repetition. The best way to do this is to learn to play the notes on an instrument. If you don't have your own instrument, you can always download a piano app and learn a piano app on an iPad or a tablet or any other computer that you may have. Alternatively, you could go buy an instrument that you've always wanted to play. Stems can go up or down. It will depend on where the note head is placed on the stave. Generally speaking, all stems go up on the right-hand side if the note head is below the middle line. All stems go down on the left-hand side if the note head is above the middle line. The note B, which is on the middle line, can have a stem going up or down, depending on what is before or after the note. So far, we've seen notes written semibrieves or whole notes. These notes last for 4 beats or 4 counts each. A minim, or a half note, and a crotchet, or quarter note, would look like this, as you can see on the left-hand side. In the top example, we have the notes G, B, D, F and A written as minims, or half notes. In the middle, we can see the notes in the spaces, A, C, E and G, also written as minims. On the bottom line, we can see G, B, D, F, A, as well as A, C, E, G, all written as crotchets, or quarter notes. Have a go at naming the notes that appear over the next few slides. You will have only 5 seconds to work out the note before the answer appears. Aim to be as quick as you can, as the answer will only stay on the screen for 2 seconds before the next question arrives. Good luck! Hopefully you have a pencil and some paper ready. Here we go. Ready? Steady. Go! And relax. So, how did you do? How many did you get right? Don't worry about getting some wrong, because that's all part of the learning process. In fact, with a little bit of regular practice, you'll notice that you will be able to improve your accuracy and increase your speed. Try downloading the worksheets that go with this tutorial, and if you need any more, please visit www.seanhumphreys.co.uk for any more free resources. Good luck, and thanks for listening.